Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2023 Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show and the Geek Gamer TV stage. We have a great seminar lined up for you this afternoon. This gentleman doesn't really need an introduction because you might have heard him in many games. Composer, sound designer, has a presentation called A Tale of Two Pins, Pulp Fiction and Queen. Please give it up for David Thiel.
Thank you, Northwest. Before I start, how about a hand for the organizers of this thing? It just gets better and better every year. Just amazing, right? And then the second bit of applause, because I want to get you used to applauding for me. But for the Geek Gamer TV guys, this is the most elaborate AV that any pinball show will ever see. And I can speak with authority because I've talked at a few of them. This is world class. You got to go back there. It's like sort of the control room of the Challenger shuttle. It's very cool. Okay, so we're going to do the sound check, but I know it works. Ready? Oh, yeah, there you go. Sound check works. Now, internet. Theoretically, there are a few people with nothing better to do than to stream this live. I love you, and if you have any questions, if I've elicited anything that you'd like to know, please text chat them in, and they will gather them up. And at the end of this, there'll be some time, and we'll address all these important issues about world peace and hunger. RGB lights and all,
Got it.
which I have not had the benefit of for 2.5 years.
You know, if Steve Ritchie, not Steve, but if Mark Ritchie ever comes over, you could put him on that.
And take him up and down.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the fun.
yeah.
A week ago today,
That's
Tommy Floyd and his charming wife, Suzanne.
Okay, I think we're almost there.
Okay. And they were moving a Pulp Fiction to my house because I've had one for 3 years, but it was the #2 hand-wired prototype that just had white lights and no sculptures, and some pieces of the hand-wiredness had disintegrated into total non-function. So they graciously sent me a production sample. And I needed that because I wanted to capture some stuff for this talk. So it has been an amazing week. And we're going to talk about two machines. Last year, if you were here, I did a lot of super secret. I'm working on projects, but I can't tell you. And I'm working on some more projects, but I can't tell you. So this year is so exciting for me because you can put a deposit down and someday get a Pulp Fiction. And if you've got a Queen or you're thinking about a Queen, I'm involved in that too. Now, this talk is a tale of two pins, and these two pinball audio projects could not be more different, in my experience, from each other. And why am I here today? Well, Pulp Fiction was revealed at the Texas Pinball Festival in March. So it was super secret, no more. The problem was the level of the audio was 92 dB. Now, for those of you who don't, it's very loud. And so people who played it, and a lot of people played it, heard about 10% of the audio. And then they were making remarks on Pinside about what they didn't like. And I was like, you didn't hear it. Please, relax. So out of enlightened self-defense, self-interest, I know Mike, who's the president of this thing, and I said, could I give a talk this year? Because I want to share some of this stuff, and I think you'll like it. Well, let's talk about Pulp Fiction first. Super Secret came first. Now, it's who you know. And thanks to Pat Lawler, who separated Butch Peele from Jersey Jack, Butch Peele got picked up within a week at CGC. And so he told Doug Duba that I was no longer exclusive at that company in Texas, whose name I hesitate to say. And Doug Duba knew there was this company called Play Mechanics who was at the point in this project where they needed audio. Now, how could I plan that? You know, that stuff just happens. So I started getting emails from these guys. Mark Ritchie and George Petro, who is the CEO of Play Mechanics and hasn't programmed in years, and Josh Sharp, the chief financial officer of Raw Thrills, who is the parent company of Play Mechanics. Did you get that? There'll be a quiz later. And so we worked something out. They wouldn't tell me the name of the license. It was so super secret. Now, they wanted me to sign a fixed bid contract to do a game based on a license that I didn't even know what it was. And they described it in loose terms. Oh, it's really simple. It's a simple level game, and it'll be real easy, you know. So they sort of knocked the price down. So I signed a contract, not knowing what the license was. I've never done this before. Now, almost right away, these guys are such pros, they shipped me prototype number 2. There were only 2 in the universe, hand-wired by George and Mark and such. And in June in 2020, roughly 3 years ago, I got that. So really, that slide's inaccurate. It's almost over 3 years, not full-time, I have been working on Pulp Fiction with these guys. When Pulp Fiction was getting really close to being produced, they started making promotional materials, and they did a making of, an hour-long making of, which was done very well. And I was interviewed, and in it I said, you know, I think this is my best work. I think this is the best audio package I've done. Somebody on Pinside took me to task for this and said, doesn't he say that every time? And this is the part that hurts. Kind of like Gary Stern saying his favorite game is the one on the line today. I can't let this stand. So the reason I think this is my best package, I mean, I worked really hard on it, but I can't have my best package if it's not attached to something good. So Pulp Fiction is a unique pinball machine.
All right, let's see what you can do. Take it away. What? No, you motherfucker!
Listen, everybody. Be calm. Cooperate.
I guess you just have to go wake him up now, won't you?
Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead.
Cool, honey bunny. Be cool.
Right, don't move hurt. If you never have.
Little man, I give you much.
But you know what's on my mind right now? It ain't the coffee in my kitchen.
It's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
Look, you brought it here, and that means that you're gonna give it a shot.
Doesn't sound like the usual mindless, boring, getting to know you chit-chat.
This is a moral test of oneself, whether or not you can maintain loyalty.
The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men.
And cut. Print it. That's a wrap.
So, for those of you who are watching this later on YouTube and you want all the facts about the call-out package, I'm not going to belabor it. They're all there. Stop it and look at it. There's some interesting points. Number one is that these call-outs, there's over 300 of them, and unlike many games that I've worked on, they're almost all used very well. Now, we had over 1,000 things extracted from 3 Hobbit movies, and my guess is really used well, 200, you know. It's very difficult to repurpose stuff that wasn't done for the pinball machine. But you have to understand, these guys worked backwards from the movie. They worked backwards from the script. They worked backwards from these call-outs and these clips, which are so cool. There are more clips per second that you can use for a pinball machine in Pulp Fiction than any property I can think of. So that helps me, and it helped them. So I said that.
It was a teenage wedding. Was the son of a preacher man.
So by the time I got onto this project, they had secured these licenses for these pieces of music, which is probably the most expensive part of the whole package. Music licensing is very expensive. And you know, there's a lot of music in Pulp Fiction. I think these are the ones you want. And it's a great start. And more generally, past Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino he likes to license music. He likes to use a certain kind of music for his stuff. And so there's kind of a Quentin Tarantino zone, right? And so I lived in the Quentin Tarantino zone for the last 3 years because you can't do a game with 5 pieces of music. You need a lot more. And so I'll play some of those later. But I had a ball doing it because it's a really interesting place to be. I learned to be a musician starting in about 1965, 66, 67. I learned how to pull things off of records, venture records and stuff. So this is not unknown to me. And the other thing about the music assets is they're all pinball appropriate. There's a lot of great music and a lot of different things you could license for a pinball machine, but a lot of them don't necessarily work with what the fundamental game is. You know, what's pinball? Things hitting targets, things going around ramps, things going in lanes and doing stuff. You know, it's combat all the time. Certain beautiful pieces of music seem a little incongruous when adapted from the movie. These pieces of music go with pinball activity. Another thing that makes this a unique product is a lot of movies are linear. You know, you start, you have some exposition, the story moves along, blah, 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 blah. You have the guy gets the girl at the end, and credits, done. Who has not seen Pulp Fiction? Okay, so let me tell you, this did not describe Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is a tad non-linear, and it goes way beyond flashbacks. I mean, it's the different scenes. The linear scenes are scrambled in time. Whoa, how does that not work for pinball? Because when we play them back, we're going to scramble them in time. It doesn't degrade the presentation at all. Perfect. So it's a unique movie to adapt to a pinball machine.
And he died of dysentery. Give me the watch. So he hid it. In one place he knew he could hide something. Is it? I'm losing life, people.
I give the watch to you.
That's a wrap.
Little man, I give the watch to you. So the thing is, you have all these scenes that are adapted from the movie, and they're used nonlinear because we have no idea where you're going to send the ball, how you're going to qualify features. But when we get into the scenes, the linearness of this case, the soliloquy by Christopher Walken, that tells you how deep you're getting in, so to speak, into the scene. And so it's, you know, we get it both ways. And we have a bunch of places in the game where these long speeches are broken up and used as fragments to tell you, you know, you're accomplishing the goal. Okay. Fortune favors the bold. 2023, who's going to make a pinball machine with no display? Let's see the show of hands. Yeah, thank you. But so, yeah, it was a bold choice, and it was sort of forced on the team, but they accepted the constraint like a good artist would and ran with it. And I believe that pinball machines after Pulp Fiction are going to be a little different than before, because I think what we've done in Pulp Fiction is we've shown how if you keep all the action on the playfield and spend all your energy making the playfield make sense, and you don't have a screen to worry about. And in fact, if your back glass is part of your light show, so the whole machine comes alive during these light shows, that's kind of better than what we've been doing. I mean, I've worked on a lot of games with big screens, The Hobbit, Pirates, so on. And the problem is that you have a developer, a brilliant developer making wonderful video things that respond to shots and stuff, totally unsynchronized with the light shows. So when you hit a thing, you know, the screen's doing something and the game's doing something, and they aren't unified. And if you look at this light show, the whole machine goes crazy. And if you were lucky enough to get an LE, you extend that to the topper with its 150 LEs, and it's good.
I can't believe this is the same color.
I'll do it one more time, because I like it.
I can't believe this is the same color.
Now, imagine a 27-inch monitor playing some video clip from the movie in the middle of that on the back box.
I can't believe this is the same color.
I would argue it wouldn't be as effective. Now, I'm not arguing that we don't put big screens on video games anymore. I'm just saying I think they need to be more subservient to the overall effect that you're trying to do. The light shows should be in charge, and the video clips, well, when you can have them, it's nice, 'cause it's good for the people watching. One more thing that makes this unique is Pulp Fiction was developed by a game development company that's been doing this forever. They primarily make video games, but Mark and George worked together at Williams making video games a long time ago. And these guys know fun, and they don't have a factory. So they worked on Pulp Fiction. To this point, it's been about 7 years, okay? Nobody took it and ripped it out of their hands saying, we got to get this on the line, otherwise we have to send all these people home. That makes it unique. I don't know if you want to do that every time, but it makes it unique. And it wouldn't be the machine it was if it weren't for COVID. George had to shut down the factory, right? Illinois shut down everything. George had Pulp Fiction in his basement. George had 18 months to stop being the CEO of Play Mechanics and work like crazy on Pulp Fiction. Thank you, COVID. Okay, and another thing that makes this game a little bit unique for all the audio geeks, I'm looking at you guys. The CGC system is a mono system. Now, why? Well, because Williams games were mono, almost all of them. And so they have a speaker in the here and a speaker in the neck, and they're mono, right? But in modern times, we have tons and tons and tons of space. So all the sound assets are stereo. Now, a naive approach to this would just to have the same signal in each left channel and the right channel and play it and say, okay, it's mono. But this gives me the opportunity to go ding, to precondition the signals that go to the neck speaker or the cabinet speaker to optimize what those speakers do well. And this is the notion for any speaker that you would buy. You know, if you have a little tweeter and a woofer, they have some kind of passive crossover. But what I do is way beyond that. So here's a demonstration. You're looking there. The stuff on the top is the left speaker, and the stuff on the bottom is the cabinet speaker. And at the end, I use both of them. So you can hear relatively what's going on here. So for all you Twitch fiends who are going to try to stream Pulp Fiction, we need 2 microphones, boys. If you just put the microphone up here in the neck, it's going to sound really nasally and not good. That's all I wanted to say. Okay. Something else that makes this a little unique, is the approach was kind of retro. And if you go back to older games, when they didn't have displays and they wanted to keep track of your bonus that's accumulating. That's the bonus accumulator. It's cool, right? It's old-fashioned, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you get to 5, you have to light the 1 and the 4. And when you get to 9, when you want 10, you light the 10, and so on. And you can accumulate big bonuses. Old school. So when you get to the end of ball bonus, we invert that process to give it back to you. Now, in my experience, the end of ball bonus thing has sort of become like an appendix. We've lost track of what its function is. We would like to cut it out if we could. And so modern games have this token thing. Oh, there's your end of ball bonus, move on. And I like this. I don't know if everybody likes it, but what we did was we made it very algorithmic, meaning I gave George a lot of little pieces of audio that he puts together. So if we have a not very good end of ball bonus, because we didn't do much.
What a jip.
But like old games, more algorithmic games, this baby scales. So if you have a really good ball, you know, and I think that's the way it should be. You just spent a minute or so, getting your pants all in a bunch and doing that. You should be rewarded for it. And because you didn't tilt, you get to keep it, right? That's the whole point of the end of ball bonus. A Tale of Two Pins. I'm going to talk about the other one that I most recently worked on. So why am I here and why am I doing this? The other reason I wanted to do this, give Queen a chance. Queen was revealed in October at Expo. And I want to say that everything I'm going to say about this is my opinion. I'm a consultant. I'm not going to say nasty things or anything, but I'm not sure they would exactly agree with me. And actually, part of this is my fault because they came to me, but I was actually exclusive with that Texas company when they came to me. But when somebody comes to me with like a music pinball project, that's sort of my attitude. I'm not fond of them because they're so hard to do justice to. Okay, October, I was there, courtesy of the Play Mechanics guys, and I flipped Queen. They had it on 2-ball play because they only had 2 working machines. They wanted to get a lot of people touching it. I don't know why. I flipped it and I liked it. That's the first thing whenever I get a whitewood is this going to be fun? And the Queen playfield is fun. It has a long thing. It's a Barry Ausler design that he did for Highway. He did 3 designs for Highway. A whitewood was never made for any of them because, it was Highway. And then when Pinball Brothers took over all those assets, they saw that they had the Queen license and they had a Barry Ausler design. But Barry's design was a wide body, and they didn't want to do that. So if you look at Barry's design, the upper playfield, the guitar was on the left side. So they got Dave Saunders, who had also done significant modifications to Dennis's design for Alien, and had him make it a narrow body. And then they took it to Norway, and the Pinball Brothers goofed with it some more. So if you see the credits for who designed Queen, I don't know. But they ended up with a fun game. Enough hands actually did a good job, and I like the way it flips. However, Queen was a victim of many things. And few of them weren't really Pinball Brothers' fault. COVID didn't help. But all the pinball companies had to deal with COVID. But they're a little more subject to it because they operate across 9 time zones. Sweden, Germany, Virginia, LA. So it's a little harder. But they had worked very hard for 2 years, and the game that they ended up manufacturing in December was very complete. It had a ton of sound assets, it had a ton of video stuff, it had a lot of rules coded. You know, what could go wrong? Well, the problem was the team never had the benefit of actually testing this on a pinball machine. The first time, and this is the part I don't think they want me to tell you, the first time that the game programmer who programmed the rules and lights and stuff ever flipped Queen was at Expo. So really, for those of you who played it at Expo, that was a miracle that it worked as well as it did. Okay, but it wasn't really good, and they had issues. They had to start manufacturing them. So by January, a few hundred people had these machines. Software wasn't ideal. They hired me because somebody encouraged them to bring David in, maybe he can help. And what I did for 90 days in November and December and January were to make videos like this, so that all these people who didn't have access to the machine, like the sound guy and the video guy, could actually experience their work in context and begin getting a sense of what's working and what's not working. That was the minimum we could do here, right? And plus, I'm helping them fix bugs. And we also started changing a lot of things because a lot of the rules worked on paper, but they weren't making a lot of sense. An example, there are 14 song modes in Queen because there are 14 songs. And when you're playing a song, some of them feature interaction with the music, like where the beat is and stuff. So they wanted multi-balls to stack on top of that. So when you qualified Wembley multi-ball, and you started Wembley multi-ball, it started giving you balls, but it didn't, you're still on the song that you were on because it's stacked. So it's not much like a multi-ball, and now you got extra balls going around, which just sort of makes things harder. It just wasn't working, right? So a lot of decisions that seemed good on paper were getting revised, and we were moving it toward the light and the goodness. However, the sound guy, who was a video in Germany and a very talented guy, was a video game guy, and he was not flipping the game. So you have to close the loop. I mean, if your work is working or not, you sort of need to evaluate it by going, oh, this is fun. Oh, this is not working. And this was never happening. And I could send them all the videos I wanted. I didn't think that was ever going to happen. So my schedule was such that I said, okay, I didn't want to do this. I think it's very rude, and I feel bad about it, and I apologize to Michael from here, right? I didn't want to do this. And I was patient. I held my breath for 90 days, but I finally told him, I'm available in February. I think I need to take this over if this ever is going to get to where you want it to be. And you know how much I love music games. So, here we go. On the left side, there's a bank of 4 drop targets and 3 stand-ups behind it. And you can see it's themed as a piano. And who plays piano? That's Freddie. That's Freddie's instrument. I mean, you collect the piano, you collect the bass, you collect the drums, you collect the guitar. And so you have to hit some targets to do each one of those. And then when you collect them, you have to go to a spot, and you've only qualified it, and you go here, and then you actually collect it, and you get points for that. There you go. So you want to know you're hitting the piano, right? So this is what was there when I took over. Now, that's very clearly, I've hit a piano target. That's the good news. From my point of view, that neither speaks Queen, that doesn't say rock and roll, it just doesn't get down, okay? So that had to go. But, what do you put there? The problem is you're going to make a cue that has to live across 14 different tunes on all different tempos and keys. Now, you can make a sound effect, but what sound effect sounds like a piano? Or, what are you going to do? So I worked on this for a while, and I came up with this notion of sound thumbnails. Like graphics, you have thumbnails, which are the small version of the big picture, but you can tell what it is. Sound thumbnails are like that, right? I extract bits of the performance. In this case, Freddie's opening to the Seventh Seas of Rye. He really plays that sucker. And I made 4 sound thumbnails out of it. So hopefully those are progressive, and those are not designed that I've hit the first or the second target. I mean, those are, I've hit the third or fourth. I mean, you want to know your progression. Where are you? How deep into this target bank am I? And obviously the last one's the biggest one. And the thing that delighted me, I was worried about how these would live across, how discordant they would be across all the different bits of music. And it wasn't so bad. In fact, when you play something that doesn't belong, it gets your attention. That's what I was trying to do, right? Ooh, you hit a drop target. So I was kind of okay with it, but in the back of my mind, I wasn't completely happy. And I do read Pinside. And so somebody who had access, I think they took delivery on their Queen machine, said this: I feel like there is all this audio that is fighting for space, and it sounds like a bunch of my kids yelling at me for attention. The piano keys and a few other switch noises could be a lot less, in my opinion. He's not wrong. But in my defense, part of the reason why these cues were being taken so badly, because they were serializing them. So there's 8 targets, right? 4 piano targets and 4 bass targets, and the ball comes out, and in 1 second, it hit 3 of them. And they felt it was so important that you get the message that you hit this one, and this one, and this one, because they have a full screen video for each one of these, and a sound effect, that they would play this one, and then they would cue up the next one and play that one, and then they'd cue up that one and play that one. Now, each of these are 2.5 seconds, maybe 3 seconds. So if we played 3 of them, you're hearing a sound for something that happened 9 seconds ago in your pinball machine. Plus, you're hearing each one serialized walking over the music. And that's part of what he's complaining about, right? So I had to talk him into this. I said, this serialization stuff's got to go. So basically, the compromise we came up with is the videos still do that, but the sounds play when you hit the switches. Pinball, okay? The ball is wild, you hit 3 switches, you should get 3 sounds. And if the 3 sounds overlap, I'm fine with that. It sounds chaotic. It was chaotic. You're playing pinball. Good. So I'm there, but I still thought he's right, particularly for drop targets. I mean, drop targets are their own affordance. You hit it, you can tell you hit it. What do you need a big event for? What do you need a full screen video? I hit a drop target. It's down. Look, the drop target's down. Oh my God, rigged for silent running. Okay. So I tried to make these lightweight. I also wanted the progression to work better. So I took the same cues sort of, and instead each one pitches up a half step. And they're faster in tempo than the tune they came from, way faster. And so now they don't even try to sound like music, which suits me. They still sound like piano though, and they work with the theme. So this is what's in the game. It's a lighter weight solution. It doesn't get in the way as much. They're all triggered exactly when they should be. So I use this technique all over the place in Queen. The spinner is Roger playing timpani hits from his timpani solo that he always does in concert. His collecting drums are his playing drums. The Brian May screaming stuff on the upper playfield, which doesn't happen all that often, is really working well, and I didn't even mess with that. So these cues are now starting to be fun and make sense, and we're getting there. Now, I'm not going to talk about Queen a whole lot more because I have more Pulp Fiction stuff. But let me just say that pinball is hard, and anybody who tells you it's not, run away. And then this game is just becoming what it should have been in October. And so if you played it in the last 2 months or 3 months and kind of didn't think it was that much, please try it one more time. Unfortunately, there isn't one here at the show, so okay. But yesterday, we did a major drop. We went to 1.0, and we finally put in this.
Is the real life? Is this just fantasy? Landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes.
Okay, there are 6 stages to that tune, and this is a 6-stage mini wizard, and if you play the whole thing, if you don't drain, I mean, if you want to hear the tone, you can just cradle the ball. It's going to take 6 minutes. So if you put $1 in, you can listen to poor reproduction of Bohemian Rhapsody for $1. Okay, your call, it's your machine, you spent $10,000, you want to do that, do it all day. Okay, fine. But this is starting to be real fun, and we're not done. I'll be working on this probably in August. 10%, 20% of my time as we keep tweaking and tuning and refining it. So I think it's worth trying it again. That's all I want to say. Now, I'm going to play some stuff. These are the sounds that you want to hear when you're playing Pulp Fiction. On the left side, there's a lane, and it has 3 individually controlled inline drop targets. These are themed the briefcase boogie, and each target sort of metaphorically stands for that little thing you rotate when you're putting in the combination to open up a briefcase. And to be able to lock a ball, you first have to clear the way. So you need a sound. You need 3 sounds. And like all these, they're a sound family. They're self-similar, but they're progression. So if you're paying attention, you hear that bigger one, you know, ooh, 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 now I can lock a ball. So this is what this is like in context. Okay. After you've done that, you can lock a ball. And the 2 sounds that are important is you get the click, click, which is the sounds of releasing the thing. And there's lights that are synced with that. Very cool. And then there's what was I calling it? A short sound that stands for something coming up. Sound thumbnail. Senior moment. Okay, so that thumbnail is the shortest one, and it just has a little tiny bit of something you probably heard and you probably recognize.
Get down, get down.
Oh, I know where we're going. Okay, so now we're going to lock the 3rd ball, which starts the briefcase multi-ball. And, old school, we used to really pride ourselves on the starts of multi-balls. Let's isolate them. Let's make them memorable. Let's have some choreography. Let's not have 5 or 6 on top of each other. Let's make a moment out of it, okay?
This is a tasty burger. Vincent. You happy? Yeah, we happy.
Get down.
Yeah, is that a moment? That's one of the multi-balls. Another thing you want to hear is the super skill shot. Off the plunge, before you've hit a switch, if you can time it such that the ball goes in the saucer when the blue arrow is lit, because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4 each give you more points. But if you get it in there when the blue thing is lit, you get this. And that's good. That's 100,000 points. Okay, on the right side of the playfield, there's another lane, and this lane is about the roll scene modes. There's sort of a film metaphor going on, and these are the cherry-picked scenes, the linear scenes from the movie that you can qualify and start. One of them is the Bad MF wallet, and this is an original custom piece for this, and I picked this one because I like this one. Prepare to boogie. You'll never hear that in the game, okay? See, these are all 30-second timed modes. And when it kicks into boogie, you know you're getting close to the time when you hit that threshold. You have 10 more seconds to put it back up in that roll scene lane to collect all the points you've been accumulating by hitting in this case, the BMF targets. And each one of these modes has different things to do. Now, if you do the twist contest, which is Chuck Berry, and you do BMF, and you do the gold watch, which you've heard, and clean the car, which is 30 minutes away, I'll be there in 10. If you do all 4 of those in a 3-ball game, you qualify the shot, which is a 4-ball mini wizard based on the scene where Mia needs assistance. And what you listen for here is that there are, I think, 5 or 6 instances of the tune based on a heartbeat. Each one is faster than the last as you score things. Now, in the video, you'll see only 1 ball, but that's because I'm holding the other 3 in my hand because I didn't have Josh Sharp to get to this damn mode. Yeah, he does. He does. I'm cheating, but in any case, you get the idea. And mixed in the background of this mode is some really whacked out Dusty Springfield that we use for end of game because that was her music. And of course, she's semi-conscious, and so I'm imagining that she's dreaming this. So you can barely hear it, but it's there.
And action. Come around and give her the shot. Come on. Hurry up, man. We're losing her. All right, what I need is a big fat magic marker. Hurry up, man. Hurry up. Come around and give her the shot. Come on.
Okay. That's in there. Then, this is a pure vanity thing for me, sort of. I wrote 5 versions of this, each one bigger than the last, because when you collect the 5 characters on the playfield by going into the saucer, well, no, collect is wrong. When you start, depending on how many you've started and have not collected, you're going to get one of the 5 versions of this tune. Now, if you really doing risk-reward, you try not to go up the roll scene mode once you have qualified because you want to first do the playfield multiplier, get that at 2x or 3x. And so then when you collect with 5 characters started but not collected, it's a big deal. So I wrote these, and this is the genre I've had such a good time in. I love writing guitar music. I'm a keyboard player. Okay, that one goes on. 2 characters started but not collected. Okay, that's good. That goes on. 3. Yeah, and they all have this, you know, the thing with this mode, if you drain while this is on, start over. This doesn't carry on from ball to ball. So the anxiety intended by this music is real, okay? You feeling it? Okay, and the last one, all the instruments come in one at a time. So it kind of starts here, and it goes all the way through to, I think, Dave Baby Cortez with the organ. I'm not sure. Some anonymous piano player. Okay. Then, if you make the roll scene shot, you get this. And is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. So I wrote Cast Chaos. Back in the day when I was a kid, there would always be a novelty instrumental on the charts. Because you only had 40 songs that anybody listened to, the top 40, right? And in the top 40, there'd always be some bizarre instrumental. And sometimes they would go back and have a rock version of some classical tune or something. So this is my version with Dick Dale and the saxophone player played the Apache tune in Pawn Shop, and Dave Baby Cortez doing something by Rimsky-Korsakov. Dave Baby Cortez! Yippee! Okay. That was fun. Thank you. Okay, I'm almost, let's see, where am I? Ooh, I got a little time. I'm almost done. There's one other big deal. Well, there's lots of stuff to do in the game, but another big deal is spelling, because pinball machines are always about spelling, and we're going to spell Pulp Fiction, 11 characters. Now, those arrows, every time you hit one of those, you get a Pulp Fiction letter. There are 11 different sound cues that progress bigger and bigger as you're collecting those. When you have them all, you get this music that tells you you have qualified Pulp Fiction Frenzy. Okay, and that just goes on. And there's actually a shooter group for that, because this, once you qualify, survives draining, because that was a pain in the to do. So then we start Pulp Fiction Frenzy. Link Road. Good, clean fun. Now, I'm going to play you something that's not in the game, never will be in the game, but was written for the game. Okay, that's a Hallelujah chorus, as performed by Kool and the Gang, Dick Dale, and the saxophone player from the pawn shop. And the cool part, I'm so cool, the choir, I wanted a choir singing, but I had to find something that was clear that I didn't have to pay money for, right? I couldn't find so I searched on the internet, and the internet's a beautiful thing. I found a recording that came off of one of those wax things of the Hallelujah chorus that sounded dreadful coming off one of those wax things. So I cleaned it up because I knew it was going to be in the background, and I used it because that's way before copyright, right? I'm good. I'm clean. I can use that. Okay, I've come to the end. I have to thank my charming and lovely wife, someone known to all of you as the voice of Mother in Alien and many others, Baby in the Hole. She supports me in this enterprise. I'm a one-person company, and I couldn't do it without her. Of course, Play Mechanics gave me the opportunity to be part of this thing, which, this is a once-in-a-career kind of thing where all the planets aligned, everything came together, and I'm so very pleased. Pinball Brothers have been very nice. I like these guys because they finished Alien, and then they rebuilt it, right? There was a time during the development of Alien when I thought they'd never build more than 10, which was killing me. So when Pinball Brothers took over and spent a year and a half and re-engineered it, and now they've made about 1,000 of them, and they're still selling them, and I'm so thrilled. So I like these guys, and so that's why I dived in. I wanted to see them survive. And Queen's their first original project. It's working out, but it hasn't been easy, but I think it's worth your attention. So give it a shot. And all you guys, give yourselves a hand. I couldn't be here without you. And any questions? And if you have a question, you need to go to that microphone so that everybody in the internets will know. Julie.
David, when you were in the Quentin Tarantino zone, were you actually dealing with him directly, or was it through his people?
Neither, actually. I thought the zone was self-defined by his choices made 20 years earlier. It's a very specific, he makes strong choices, right? So that surf music, that guitar thing, that sort of, that was obvious to me. And so I looked there. And it was an easy zone for me, right? I can play Dave Baby Cortez all day. And so it was fun. It was easy and fun, and it was fun to be in that space. So no, I had nothing. Generally, we didn't on the beyond the initial setting of constraints and stuff, and then the final approval, there wasn't a lot of day-to-day anything from his people.
And also, I love your energy and your passion for your work.
Oh.
So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Oh, another question. And that's your cue. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the spinner sound.
Yeah.
In Pulp Fiction, is that a created sound effect that you made, or is that a couple of pieces stolen from the movie that are looped together?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I'm glad you asked about the spinner sound in Pulp Fiction. See, I originally had something else, right? And then at some point, Mark said, and we want to be really retro. We want to put like a chime bar on the spinner. And I had given them a ton of chime bar stuff because I had a ton of chime bar stuff. Thankfully, when I needed this for Transformers, I needed chime bar stuff for a Stern project. I asked Mike Lorraine, who has an EM at his house, and he recorded a whole bunch of raw material for me. So I had the raw material. Then I extracted a whole bunch of stuff and put it in the build, because there's a lot of variations. What, single chime, 2 chimes, 3 chimes, 1 and 3, so, and then a single ding or a ding ding or a ding 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 or so George ignored all that stuff and he picked one, right? I think chime 1, and just put that in, and that lived there in the game for about a year and a half. But when we got closer to production, I really wanted to make that be less digital, make it come alive. So I wanted there to be variations on that chime bell when you hit it. So I did that, and I put it in, and I got some negative response. Mark and George weren't nuts about what I'd done. And so then I submitted something else, and that didn't work either. I went about 5 variations into this. What I ended up doing, to answer your question specifically, is I went into a physically modeled synthesizer that makes a bell. Because the problem with working with the samples from a real EM machine is you don't isolate the solenoid hitting the bar. You're getting all the other sounds of the mechanism moving around, moving score reels and doing all that other stuff that inevitably are part of this. And you don't want that with the spinner because it's going so fast and it just sounds goofy. So I did 2 things. I went back with spectral editing tools, and I removed as much of that extraneous stuff from the real sound as possible. Then I got this thing over here, and I merged them. I put them together, and then I made 4 or 5 different, slightly different variants of it, because as you can imagine, the mechanical thing is never going to be quite the same every time if it's doing fast, right? Because the bar may be being pushed up halfway up and stuff. And eventually, after we got a good level on it, that's what's in the game. But it was a non-trip. Put a bell on the spinner. Oh, yeah, fine. But actually, there are, I think, 3 other spinner rips in the game. You get super spinners, and there's one themed on the car thing, because there's an MPH target that you qualify by going down through the in lane, and that you hear a car sound, and then when that's qualified, you go through that, you hear like engines revving and all that kind of stuff. So there are at least 3 different spinner rips in the game, but the default one, the one you hear most of the time, is that chime thing. Oh, great question. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
David, we do have one question from chat, and looks like that's what we'll have time for. Okay. From Dr. Red Dog, likes to know, if you could change one thing in Pulp Fiction and Queen, what would they be?
See, Dr. Red Dog's my friend, but not anymore. No. There's very little in Pulp Fiction that I would change. We've had so much time to get it right, and my criteria for when a game is done is when I'm sick of it. I played this so much, and I think this is done. This is really feeling mature, and it's done, right? And Pulp Fiction is creeping up on that. I mean, I'm still doing a few things, and I wouldn't bet against 3 or 4 more sound calls getting put in the game because somebody watched the movie again and said, hey, that should be here. And so I still have I can still do that since, it's software. Queen, what would I do? Jeez, what would I do? Well, I would have wished there hadn't been COVID, and I would have wished that their management would have gotten the Italians who build the machines to stop making aliens long enough to make 10 Queen machines. That's all you need. You need about 10 machines because the artist wants one, the sound guy wants one, both programmers want one, the guy doing the rolls and stuff wants one, and then you want some other machines where people not involved in developing code can actually be testing every day the results of these 5 guys and their work. And I wished that could have occurred 18 months ago, right? And this whole situation wouldn't have arisen. But, you know, a year from now, when you're playing a really good Queen game, all of this will just seem like, oh, it's a story, you know, it was unfortunate, blah, blah, blah. But play it now. This is really fun. And that's all we're trying to do here. All I'm trying to do. So that's what I would have changed.
We got one last question under the wire here. GGTV Joseph wants to know, besides Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody, have you ever used an entire song from a well-known band on a machine?
From a band. You're causing me to parse across 30 games, but I can lose 5 of them because they were FM. Okay, modern games, band. I don't think, no. I mean, I did 2 other music games, right? AC/DC, yeah. we used a lot of tunes from AC/DC, and Rolling Stones, we used a bunch of tunes. But outside of a music game, I need help from the audience. If they could spot it for me, because I can't, the answer is probably no, because music licensing is so expensive. And so generally, I'm happy that music licensing is so expensive. It gives me the opportunity to write custom stuff for Pinball. And that's why I love doing that. I primarily spend most of my time on sound effects, but I love writing music. So because, okay, just get David to do it. Fine, thank you very much, I'll do it. That's it. Thank you.